Alors, on va passer à la troisième partie, dernière partie de notre rendez-vous, et j'appelle à la tribune Claudio de Vincenti. Claudio de Vincenti, que vous pouvez applaudir. Claudio de Vincenti est le sous-secrétaire d'État à la présidence du Conseil. Alors ne cherchez pas sur Google, c'est une fonction qui est spécifique au gouvernement italien. Il faut simplement que vous sachiez, parce que ça dit tout, que dans l'ordre protocolaire des choses, il est à peu près de fait, avec le ministre des Finances, le numéro 2 du gouvernement italien. Donc c'est quelqu'un d'extrêmement important, de rare, et nous lui sommes très reconnaissants d'être avec nous aujourd'hui.
Merci beaucoup. Merci à tous. Merci à Gérard Collomb pour l'hospitalité. Merci à Bernard Spitz et à tous les organisateurs de ces très intéressants sommets des réformistes européens. Je vais parler en anglais, parce que pour moi c'est plus facile. The feedbacks on the 3 workshops by Enrico Letta, Lionel Zinsou, Emma Reynolds and Pascal Lamy gave a deep picture of the main challenges that Europe is today facing. In synthesis, there's no doubt that our age is an age of unprecedented and extraordinary challenges. And this is true in particular for the reformer parties. In this speech, I will argue that with the financial crisis and the global slowdown that followed in growth and trade, we are now at a crucial turn of history. If we will not be able to advocate for growth together with openness and competition, we will probably face an age of resurging nationalism in its worst fashion, and maybe even an end to the expansion and diffusion of democracy and freedom in the world. The ways of liberal reforms introduced in the European Union and in the member states in the past 30 years are impressive. We aimed at improving competitiveness, productivity, by reforms of labor market, of welfare system, by regulatory reforms, competition policies, and so on. These reforms are necessary and positive, in my view, and we can proudly claim that progressive parties were more able to deliver on the reform than conservative parties. However, we today must recognize that these reforms, positive and necessary, have been insufficient in creating a growth-oriented economic framework, for Europe as a whole within the new international context, and to avoid a dramatic reduction in trust of European citizens. The workshops showed very well that we now are facing a dramatic risk of populism and nationalism. Let me begin with only two dramatic economic challenges we face in the near future. The first one, productivity slowdown. The observed slowdown in productivity in all advanced countries is a particular source of concern. It hurts our societies in many ways. It delivers lower growth, but it also decreases demand for labor and wages, possibly delivering a more unequal and unsafe society. We thrive in a progressive and growing society. Redistribution, civil rights, and freedom expansions are all facilitated by our higher growth. Our ability to deliver on this issue is crucial. The second one, inequality. The body of evidence about the increasing inequality in European societies is definitive. We learned recently with the work of Branko Milanovic that a large share of the population in advanced countries has experienced very limited increases in real incomes in the last decades. In a society with diminishing expectations, definition by Krugman, the fact that a significant share of society is actually losing ground, or at least having this perception, is a tragedy that could fuel the worst political instincts. These and other challenges are deeply intertwined. Unequal access to resources and education, for example, worsens productivity for the less well-off and prevents the full exploitation of the talents of society, thus reducing the potential growth rate. Widening differences in productivity worsen the inequality problem, and so on. What do we need to do? Surely, we need to tackle the issue of the large share of the population that, right or wrong, feels it's been left out of the gains from globalization. We need to create a more stable framework for the lives of these people, especially young people. Of course, that will be difficult in the current framework of necessary fiscal prudence, but it needs to be done. And surely, increasing productivity through innovation must be a crucial element of our strategy. The increasing speed of technological and social innovation is inducing a rapid change in productive specialization, not along the sectoral lines, but rather depending on the ability to use new technologies. We need a new investment policy that builds stable frameworks and contexts that enable economic agents to innovate or exploit timely innovations. More in general, the aging process and health, the climate changes, the environmental and energy problems, the bioeconomy and the circular economy, the regeneration of cities, the safety of territory, are all challenges that must be tackled with innovative approaches. Recently, during these days, Italy has taken up the challenge with the program so-called Industria 4.0, Industry 4.0. In the next years, we will be investing heavily on innovation, research, digital infrastructure, and the strengthening of national clusters and hubs. All these and other issues are important, and they claim structural reforms. Okay, Italy has implemented and is implementing several deep structural reforms. Reform of the labor market, reform of the product market, reform of the welfare system, banking system, public administration, and so on. But I would like to conclude my speech emphasizing that the time is ripe for saying that the structural reforms, positive, necessary, extremely necessary, but are not sufficient without a macroeconomic policy able to create a macroeconomic environment which induces positive expectations about aggregate demand and market perspectives, and consequently stimulates entrepreneurial animal spirits and investments. After the financial crisis, the European Union reacted with a conservative macro policy stance, both in monetary policy and in fiscal policy. The US took the opposite stance. Now we know for sure who was right. We are going to pay dearly that mistake, as the European Union is not going to recover the GDP lost in the last decade. Keeping on with the same mistakes would be devilish. The first best in this field would be certainly an expansionary policy stance at European Union level, by enhancing the role of the European Union budget and Union fiscal policy. We know that just until now there is not sufficient consensus for this enhancement of economic policy at European Union level. Well, not well, but in any case, in this case, it is necessary at least to coordinate economic policies at national levels, the economic policies of the member states, in a more progressive way. For instance, it is necessary to ensure that all countries rigorously apply European Union rules, all rules. For instance, I think that Germany has to be compliant with the rule about the current account surplus. About fiscal policies at the national level, someone blames that Italy resorts to flexibility clauses in 2016. I would like to observe that in order to resort to flexibility clauses, a country has to implement structural reforms and has to accelerate infrastructural investments. So, we should wish that a number, not only Italy, but a number of European member states resort to flexibility clauses. A number of countries, in this case, would implement the reforms and accelerate investments. Europe as a whole would be better. In conclusion, the key challenge European Union is facing is that of recovering the original spirit of the founder fathers, Schuman, Monnet, Spinelli, that is Europe as an area of growth and progress for its citizens, for its young. This is the main way for fighting in an effective way against populism, for cohesion and peace. In conclusion, today we have to understand that business as usual is no more true. The European ideal needs a strong change in the European Union policies, and I think that this change is necessary now. Thank you very much.